gotta introduce.
Oh.
I got some speeches to make.
Mike's gotta have his speech.
I gotta pay the bills. Hey, good evening, folks. Welcome to the Irish Cultural Center of the Mohawk Valley. Just want to tell you about some programs that we have coming up here in the not too distant future. On Friday, December the 3rd, Cherish the Ladies. I don't know how many folks are familiar with Cherish the Ladies. They will be here down in the event center. We have tickets here tonight. There are tickets downstairs. If you want to pay the extra fee for Eventbrite, you can go online and get them on Eventbrite. And if you really want to pay extra money for it, you wait till the night of the show. Then it'll be another $10. But anyways, yeah. So get them in advance if you want to come. It's going to be a great evening of entertainment. They are literally world-class entertainers. They've played probably every continent except maybe Antarctica, I think. So, and I wouldn't be surprised if Joni Madden had got them down there, but on one of her cruises. So anyway, it's going to be a great evening. So if you like that music, that good traditional stuff with a mixture of Christmas carols and things, please come out and join the show. We have, as you may have seen the sign over here, we have Christmas wreaths for sale, taking orders for Christmas wreaths. They're balsam pre-decorated. We'll be decorating them ourselves. And you gotta order them by the 1st of December. We have order forms up here, or you can go online on our Facebook page and get a download an order form for those. And on Wednesday, the 8th of December, we have a paint and sip. For those of you that like to paint, sip a little bit of tea. You don't think so, huh?
Not tea.
We do have a, there's an online link for it, right?
Yes, there is,
Colleen?
yeah. Yeah, if you go to the Irish Cultural Center Facebook page, or right there's a link right on the post. Or it's listed right here too, you can copy it down.
And on the first Wednesday of each month, downstairs in the pub, we do have a traditional Irish music session. There might be some folks in this room that play at those every once in a while, one or two, maybe 3 or 4 of us up here, 5, I don't know. But yeah, come and have a bit of crack, a little bit of a pint of Guinness or whatever pleases your thirst, and enjoy the music with us. Okay, tonight we have Soldier's Joy. It's basically a history of the Civil War through music and prose.
It's how the music affected the life of the soldier during the war.
You know what? Instead of me yakking more, I'll just let Bill tell you.
Thanks, Mike. Let's do it. Jubilo by Henry Clay Work, probably one of the most prolific writers of all kinds of music, but especially a lot of topical stuff during the Civil War. Robert E. Lee once said, "Without music, there would have been no army." Music was a big part of life in the war between the states, both in the camp and on the field. Not only was it the major source of entertainment for soldiers, but it was also a way to give voice to the feelings of the time. And with many regimental bands, it was a useful tool to coordinate the drills, battlefield movements, and communications.
And it was everywhere in the 1860s. It was part of most folks' everyday lives and common for nearly every family to play music at home. By 1860, 21,000 pianos were sold every year. Imagine that. I mean, how many people are trying to get rid of a piano now from their house? That's like tink, tink, tink. And many homes had also violins and banjos and a growing number of guitars.
Many Civil War letters and diaries also contain at least a passing reference to music. It was so common at the time that a lot of the soldiers didn't even write about it. But when they did, you could see how it affected their lives. And we'll share some of those during the program from Union soldiers, but also from some who came right here in Oneida County.
Definitely. Many historians and musicologists credit the Civil War for the period that gave birth to the music that is truly American. There was a grand mixing of backgrounds and cultures, and it acted as a catalyst, and that mixture produced some truly American sounds. Army units included individuals from across the country, and they rapidly traded tunes, instruments, and techniques. The songs that arose from this fusion were the first American folk music with discernible features that can be considered unique in America.
There was also a growing music industry in the States. By the end of the 1850s, over 5,000 songs and tunes were published in the form of sheet music and distributed regionally and nationally. Writers like Stephen Foster sold hundreds of thousands of copies of songs that were performed, many in the most popular entertainment arena of the day, the minstrel shows. The minstrels, who my research found many were Irishmen. In fact, a preponderance of the early minstrels were Irish. And if you come and see our Irish show, you'll learn about that. Foster really achieved his fame by writing for the Christie minstrels, who were the most popular, and they toured the North, the South, and also Europe in the 1850s. They were like the Beatles of their day.
Music was also one of the most effective ways, as Bill was saying, for people to express their opinions and emotions. The song made the message memorable, and even for you, I'm sure that's true. You hum a little tune, it gets stuck in your head, and it brings back a memory. Since many Americans were barely literate, it was a way to communicate a message that they could understand and also pass along through that song.
And it was soldiers, not civilians, that effectively passed music along to the general population during the war. When large armies were on the march, they sang, and their bands played their favorite tunes as they passed through cities, towns, and rural areas. And many people heard songs for the first time this way. In fact, it was soldiers who created the Union Army's most popular song, John Brown's Body.
So John Brown, he was a man of action. He was a man who would not be deterred from his mission of abolishing slavery. On October 18th in 1859, he led 21 men on a raid of the federal arsenal at Harper's Ferry, Virginia. His plan to arm slaves with the weapons that he and his men had seized from the arsenal was thwarted, however, by local farmers, militiamen, and Marines led by Robert E. Lee. Within 38 hours of the attack, most of Brown's men had been killed or captured. Working most of his adult life, he was never financially successful. He even filed for bankruptcy when he was in his 40s. His lack of funds, however, did not deter him from keeping support of the causes that he believed in. He and his wife agreed to raise a black youth as one of their own, and he aided escaped slaves through his involvement in the Underground Railroad.
And here's a tune from that era, memorializing John Brown, called John Brown's March.
Great.
Yeah. had a lot of roots in New York. He moved to the black community of North Elba, New York in 1849. This community was established, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Garrett Smith.
Oh, yeah.
He was one of the abolitionists back in the 1840s and 50s, and he donated tracts of land in northern New York that he would donate them to black families, escaped slaves, if they were willing to farm the land. So he recruited John Brown to come out and be the leader of that community and kind of act as a kind father to them. Well, that didn't really work out, and things weren't moving fast enough for John Brown, so he joined the anti-slavery efforts in Kansas, and things got violent. After a pro-slavery attack against the anti-slavery town of Lawrence, he led a violent reprisal, he and his men dragging 5 men and boys from their homes and murdering them.
Oh.
But he came back east and began to plan for his war in Virginia against slavery, and he sought money to fund the army. So again, he came to Garrett Smith as one of the financiers. And on October 16th, 1859, he put his plan into action when he and his men raided the arsenal at Harper's Ferry. If you've never been there, that's one of the coolest places. It's a beautiful spot where the rivers come together, pretty little town, and the arsenal's still there. And it's not like you would imagine it from the movies. But initially, the country was shocked by his exploits. But some Northerners started to speak favorably of the militant abolitionist. Quote, "He did not recognize unjust human laws, but resisted them as he was bid," said Henry David Thoreau. "No man in America has ever stood up so persistently and effectively for the dignity of human nature." He was hanged on December 2nd, 1859. No,
Oops, sorry. I just want to play a lot.
we haven't done it for a while.
In 1859, after abolitionist John Brown was hung, he became a hero throughout the North. And in the early days of the Civil War, the song John Brown's Body swept across the country. But the song actually started out by being about another John Brown, and this fellow was a Scotsman living in Boston. When the war broke out, he joined the Massachusetts Volunteers. Sporting the same name as the abolitionist, Brown became a butt of constant teasing. Someone would call out, "That can't be John Brown. John Brown's dead." Another wag would shout, "His body lies a moldering in the grave."
This seemed to be to the young soldiers the height of hilarity. Soon they were singing about his decomposing body to an old camp hymn called "Say Brothers, Will You Meet Us?" One of the members said, of the regiment said that these verses were sung over and over with a great deal of gusto. The 12th Massachusetts belted out this song as they marched down Broadway in New York City on their way to actually Washington to protect the city and eventually fight in Bull Run. Thousands of people were lining the streets in New York and heard them singing John Brown's Body for the first time. And that's how the song spread around the country. So they called the 12th Massachusetts the Hallelujah Regiment. John Brown, the soldier, didn't make it through the war. He was killed in battle June 6, 1862. But his song caught the country's attention, and it wasn't long before it was on everybody's lips. A few months later, Julia Ward Howe wrote a new set of lyrics, and she called her song the Battle Hymn of the Republic.
On June 28, in 1863, on the way to Gettysburg, the 97th Oneida Regiment marched through Emmitsburg, Maryland. It was described as a quiet town in a region that had felt none of the miseries of war. Things were currently quiet and peaceful, but the men knew that they would soon be meeting the enemy again. At this moment, someone from the head of the column struck the John Brown chorus, which was quickly taken up along the whole line, and presently every man fell into a step in time with the cadence of this simple yet soul-stirring hymn.
John Brown's body lies a moldering in the grave. John Brown's body lies a moldering in the grave. John Brown's body lies a moldering in the grave. His soul is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. sour apple tree as we go marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His soul is marching on. He's gone to be a soldier in the army of the Lord. Gone to be a soldier in the army of the Lord. He's gone to be a soldier in the army of the Lord. His soul goes marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His soul is marching on. Woo. Thank you. Of all the Union regiments, probably the most famous was the Irish Brigade. More than 150,000 Irishmen, most who were recent immigrants and many who were not even U.S. citizens, joined the Union Army during the Civil War. Some joined out of loyalty to their new home. Others hoped that a display of patriotism might put a stop to the anti-Irish discrimination. These were the days of no Irish need apply. But as the war dragged on and Irish casualties mounted, however, their sympathy for the Union cause began to wane. And by the end of the war, many had abandoned the Northern cause altogether. But between 1861 and 1863, the soldiers who fought in the all-Irish units that made up the Irish Brigade were known for their courage, ferocity, and toughness in battle. I've got to change banjos here.
Oh, thank goodness.
There's a reason I carry two. It spares you the torture of watching me tune a banjo in the middle of a performance. These days will be remembered by America's loyal sons. If it hadn't been for Irishmen, what would your Union done? Hand to hand we fought 'em out in the blazing sun. Stripped to the pants, we did advance at the Battle of Bull Run.
Celtic music heritage, and many of the tunes and songs they played were passed throughout the Union and rebel armies. Many were played by a marching pipe band. This tune, The Minstrel Boy, was played as the brigade marched out of New York City, off to war.
The Fighting 69th, probably the most famous of all Irish regiments, fought bravely. And of 2,000 regiments mustered into the war, the 69th suffered the 6th most casualties. The regimental battle cry was Fáin Melech, Gaelic for clear the way. The regimental motto was the traditional and accurate observation about the Irish: gentle when stroked, fierce when provoked. The 69th was famous not only for its bravery, but known throughout the Union Army for its partying ways. God bless the Irish. It was famous for a drink created by its commander, Thomas Francis Marr, the 69th cocktail, 3 parts of champagne and 1 part of Irish whiskey. They also had their own marching tune that was later picked up and probably made more famous by General George Armstrong Custer.
By the Irish Brigade was their first introduction to traditional Irish music. When the brigade was on the march, the band played many traditional tunes that would soon become well known in America, and ones that would give soldiers hours of amusement making up their own verses.
And you'll hear some of those verses a little later. But also, Irish music, it's kind of interesting to see how tunes bleed into each other. And one of the most famous tunes of the Civil War, written by an Irishman, actually probably came from an earlier jig that goes back several hundred years. Oneida County regiments, the 117th and the 97th Oneida, were both mustered in early in the war and consisted of volunteers from Utica, Rome, and all the surrounding towns. Between them, they saw action in most of the major battles in the eastern theater of the Civil War, including Gettysburg, Cold Harbor, the Wilderness, Antietam, and Fredericksburg. The 97th was right in the thick of the action at Gettysburg and suffered heavy casualties. They were right in the spot that Pickett's charge was attacking. One of the members of the 97th in a letter home wrote that one thing he remembered about Pickett's charge was the aftermath when the rebels were retreating and the band on the rebel side of the battlefield was playing "Nearer, My God, to Thee" as the soldiers walked back to their lines in defeat. Eugene Skinner was the chaplain of the 97th, and this is a letter he wrote. Saturday night last, 11 p.m., we were roused from our sleep by such cheers along our lines as only Union soldiers, flushed with victory or good news, can give. Thinking our men were making a grand charge on the rebels, we rushed out from our bunks onto Shabelle, each anxious to know what was up. Soon a courier rode by, giving us the glorious news that Atlanta was ours. Then a band of one of the colored brigades on our left struck up the Star-Spangled Banner. Another band higher up the line played Hail Columbia. Another, the Red, White, and Blue. And another, Yankee Doodle. Finally, all the bands played together the latter melody with all the force they could muster, while our men from the Appomattox on the right, far away towards the Weldon Railroad on the left, doubled and redoubled their cheers. The effect was startling. Even sick men, shaking with chills and burning with fever, forgot their ailments and cheered as loud as any. And I firmly believe that if a charge had been ordered at that time against the enemy, our sick would have swept onward with the well, and woe would have been to the Johnnies that stood in their way.
Wow.
Another letter home from a local soldier, Charles Hayden, 97th New York. As I sit writing about 2 miles in front, the pickets are firing, and I hear the bang, bang constantly. There goes a cannon, boom. So it goes day and night. As it is towards evening, brass bands are filling the air with very sweet music. At almost every headquarters, sometimes half a dozen are heard at once. A strange commingling of sounds. Last night, we could hear the singing and playing from camps a mile away.
Here's another letter from Charles Hayden, and he's actually came from Westernville. Elise wishes me to be a Democrat. I wish she might be a Christian if she is not. Then she may be a Democrat or Republican. She might err in judgment, but she will not err in principle. She will aim to be right and do right. We should not think more of our party than our country. I would rather the names Democrat and Republican would link us to no more than that we should lose our free institutions. I would that we had a party without the imperfections of either, but as they are made of imperfect men, they will be imperfect. And we should choose the best and will. I believe that is all that they can do. I believe that the union of these states will still be established.
Virginia, July 2nd, 1863. Editors of the Rome Sentinel, dear sirs, with all the labor, suffering, and anxiety we as soldiers have to endure, we often have our fun, and well and right heartily do we enjoy it. A rather laughable circumstance occurred a short time ago in our camp, which I will relate to show you that the Oneida Fourth is not entirely gone up, if we are way down here in a Virginia swamp. Bob was posted that night by the major in person, and he gave the most rigid orders that no living thing must pass the beat without the countersign. Bob took his position at his post, determined to be vigilant. Bob had walked his beat about an hour when he heard the sound of an approaching object. Soon a lusty porker, belonging to one of our many neighboring Sikesh farmers, came lumbering along directly towards Bob's beat, so closely that Bob knew at once who and what that was approaching. But being determined that his orders should be lived up to the very letter, he at once gave the challenge, "Who goes there?" No reply. Mr. Porker waddled along as though nothing had ever happened. "Halt!" cries Bob, bringing his gun to a ready. Just as the porker was crossing his beat, he again called on him to halt, which it did not do. Bang went Bob's gun, and down came Mr. Porker. The camp was all in a furor in a second, and down came the major, officer of the day, and several more who were anxious to know what had happened, fearful the Rebs were upon us.
They arrived, finding Bob quietly standing by Mr. Porker, loading his gun as if nothing had happened. "Why did you shoot the hog for?" said the major to Bob. "I done it, sir, to carry out to a letter my orders. When I was put on the post, sir, I was ordered by you, sir, to let no living thing pass my beat without the countersign. This thing tried to do that, and I put a stop to his impudence, sir. All right, sir, I suppose, sir," said Bob with imperturbable gravity. Yes, Bob, all right. But you may let hogs and all dumb beasts pass hereafter without the countersign." Bob very demurely said, Aye, sir. Always obey orders, sir. Military orders, sir." It will be a long time ere shall we forget Bob's hog adventure. Nothing new in camp, same old story. Amanda. I'll be
See you
back in
later,
a little
Bob.
while.
Headquarters, 117th New York Volunteers, near Bermuda 100, Virginia, August 1863. To the editor of the Utica Daily Observer, Dear Sir, I hope you will excuse the liberty I take in addressing you. I am not going to tell you news of war, for you can get plenty of that. In fact, I am going to ask as a favor, will a generous public do something to keep our suffering and starving families alive till we, their natural providers and protectors, come home, if it is God's will, to see to them ourselves. True, sir, that man had no right to leave his family, but of such our regiment is composed. And had it not been for just such men, the 117th would not have been so soon filled up. The country called for and needed the men at the time, and in response the men came. Do something for them, for I tell you, my dear sir, on the lonely picket post in darkest night, our thoughts go home, and oh, the agonizing thought comes to him, oh God, what will become of my wife and family? Now, sir, this is no fancy of mine, for had you been with us on march from Petersburg on the 31st of July, you would have seen our division bury 19 men on the march, and we halted at noon too. That day I saw men who fell out of the ranks, and all their thoughts were, what will become of my family? Well does the soldier know his pay does not begin to support those at home. And I tell you, when a soldier knows his folks are all well and doing well, it makes him do his duty as lightly again. It makes a new man of him. Today, I have received a letter from my wife, and the way my family suffers is not very encouraging for me to re-enlist. Now, sir, I do not pretend to ask you to publish this in your paper, but if it is possible to wake up the people in Utica or Oneida County, in God's name, let it be done. If it is possible, let the families that are in need come forward, inquire into their character, and relieve those that are in want and need. As for our pay, we have heard enough of being paid this last 3 months, but it has not come yet come. Meanwhile, our families are suffering. Yours in company, J.M.
Yeah. Good thing we don't play in too many different keys. The cool thing about playing the old-time banjo is you can tune the banjo to get the best sound out of it. But it is kind of awkward if you change keys a lot, so. The 97th also had some good experiences, and this comes from an account by Perry Miller, who was a recruit from Camden in White House Landing, Virginia, which is enemy territory. The citizens invited the soldiers to an ice cream social. And the purpose of the social was to buy musical instruments for their church. So the soldiers gladly went to support the civilians and contribute to the cause so they could buy musical instruments for the church. And he said the musical program was wonderful, and it was also something that showed him that the North and South were a lot closer than the war really presented itself. The people were close.
And this was a letter from David Shapley of Utica, New York in 1861. Our leisure hours are devoted to ball playing, reading, writing, sparring. We while away the evenings in singing. We have a glee club called Ellsworth's Glee Club, which discourses splendid music accompanied by a melodeon.
I wish I was an apple hanging on a tree. Every time a Cindy that should take a bite of me. Get along home, Cindy, Cindy, get along home. Get along home, Cindy, Cindy, I'll marry you someday. Get along home, Cindy, Cindy, get along home. Get along home, Cindy, Cindy, I'll marry you one day. You ought to see my Cindy, well she lives way down south. She's so sweet, the honeybees, they fly right to her mouth. Get along home, Cindy, Cindy, get along home. Get along home, Cindy, Cindy, I'll marry you one day. Get along home, Cindy, Cindy, get along home. Get along home, Cindy, Cindy, I'll marry you one day. I wish I had a quarter for every girl I know. But Cindy, she's the best of all, that's why I love her so. Get along home, Cindy, Cindy, get along home. Get along home, Cindy, Cindy, I'll marry you one day. Get along home, Cindy, Cindy, get along home. Get along home, Cindy, Cindy, I'll marry you one day.
There was probably not a regiment in the service that did not boast of at least one fiddler or banjo player in its ranks, and they could be heard inside or on a company street almost any pleasant evening. However unskilled the artist, they were sure to be the center of attention. It was estimated that over 50,000 musicians were enlisted as musicians in the Union Army during the war. That's a whole bunch of musicians.
A lot of
Full-time
instruments.
gig then. There were 618 known regimental bands. In 1861 alone, the Union spent over $4 million on bands. Whoa. They transmitted orders, charge, retreat, camp life, meal calls, revelry. They also had the beat for marching and drills, which for the Union Army consumed much of the soldiers' day. Musicians also had other duties, some which they did not like very much. They were used to administer punishment, floggings. One musician, Augustus Myers, received 30 days in the guardhouse for refusing to whip a man.
One famous Union general came from Utica. His name was Dan Butterfield. He was awarded the Medal of Honor for rallying his brigade under withering fire. He was also known for his bad temper, and he irritated a lot of fellow officers. But he had poetry in his soul. One night in July of 1862, he called the brigade bugler to his tent. He wasn't happy with the regulation bugle call played at the end of the day to signal lights out. Wasn't very musical, he thought. He had something different in mind. He whistled the tune for bugler Oliver Norton. They noodled around with it until they had something Butterfield was satisfied with. And Norton used the new call that very night. Buglers from other brigades camped nearby picked it up, and they began to use it as well. It spread to the whole Union Army and to the Confederate Army as well. So a collaboration between a general and a bugler led to 24 notes, the haunting melody we know as taps. And if you want to see Dan Butterfield, he's in the hallway at the entrance to the Oneida County History Center on Genesee Street. His statue is right there as you come in the front door. Soldiers made their own songs too. They're popular tunes and they would make up words. This one comes from Martin Hayes, who was a soldier out of Derry, New Hampshire. If I ever get through this war, a rebel call, don't find me. Hitch my car to the Northern Star, the girl I left behind. There was a lot of correspondence also that went on between men and women, husbands and wives, boyfriends and girlfriends, brothers and sisters. And here I found a very interesting set of letters from a couple out in western New York, Sarah Stilson and Oliver West. They met at Teachers Institute in 1860, and they were both from Danville in Livingston County. In August 1862, Oliver West was mustered into the 130th New York Regiment. After Sarah had urged him to enlist, Oliver wrote to her, "Women have no right to press themselves out of all bounds of propriety and fitness and make themselves ridiculous in pushing their sons, their brothers, their lovers, their friends and acquaintances out of doors and into the army." Guess who he blamed? Of the war itself, West doubted that it would restore the Union, and it was a common feeling of many of the soldiers of the day. They will either conquer and subjugate us, or we them. For my part, though I feel a sorrowful, mournful sternness, a cold-blooded, heartless inexorableness, an unchristian mercilessness, as I utter it, yet do I say, let us destroy them. Let us make them to us, and more so, as Ireland is to England, as Italy was to the Goths and the Vandals, rather than ourselves be overrun and conquered and our republic cut into many petty sovereignties, which would bleed in interminable wars with each other.
In Sarah's reply, she voices her dismay of his view of the war and encourages him to be more optimistic. She defends the role of women in the war effort. Don't think that we northern women who can't fight are non-caring and perfectly at ease through all of your soldiers' sufferings. If there's anything we can do, we will do it. We will remember you, if that will do you any good. We will write you long letters too, if that will do you any good. We will pity you when you are sick, if that will do you any good, or if it won't. For that will be spontaneous, and we will pray for you. Don't stop a moment to think, dear John, a country calls, then go. Don't fear for me nor the children, John, I'll care for them, you know. Leave the corn upon the stalk, the fruit upon the tree, and all our little stores, dear John, yes, leave them all to me. Then take your gun and go, dear John, yes, take your gun and go, for Ruth can drive the ox, dear John, and I can use the hoe. The army's short of blankets, John, and take this heavy bear. I spun and wove them when a girl and worked them with great care. Rose in every corner, John, and here's my name you see. On cold, cold ground they'll warmer feel because they're made by me. So take your guns and go, dear John, yes, take your gun and go, for Ruth can drive the ox, dear John, and I can use the hoe. And now goodbye to you, dear John, I cannot say farewell. We'll hope and pray for the best, dear John, His goodness none can tell. His army around you, John, to guard you night and day. Our beloved country's shield, till war shall pass away. So keep your gun and go, dear John, yes, take your gun and go, for Ruth can drive the ox, dear John, and I can use the hoe. In one of her last letters to Oliver, she writes, "Oh, I enjoy getting letters. What a strange throb there is to an unread letter. Get a letter just as you are going into battle. Put it into your vest pocket with the seal unbroken, and go and fight. How you'll hear its heartbeat. What if such a letter should be found with a dead soldier? wouldn't the unbroken seal have kind of a mysterious signification?
Well, we shall meet, but we shall miss him. There will be one vacant chair. We shall linger to caress him while we breathe our evening prayer. When a year ago we gathered, joy was in his mild blue eyes. For his severed our hopes in ruined life.
We shall meet,
but
we shall
we shall miss him.
There
There will be one vacant chair.
we shall
Linger to caress him while we breathe our evening prayer. True, they tell us that recent glory evermore will deck his brow, but this soothes the anguish only sweeping o'er our heartstring now. Oh, sleep today, oh, early falling in thy green and narrow bed. Winds from the pine and cypress mingle with the tears we shed.
We shall meet,
We shall meet,
we shall
we shall miss him.
There
There will be one vacant chair.
we shall
We shall linger to caress him while we breathe our evening prayer. While we breathe our evening prayer. Thank you.
Over 20,000 songs were written during the war years, and songwriters such as George Root, William Shakespeare Hayes, and Henry Clay Work all were very popular in their day. Several of the songs and tunes that you've heard were written by them. But the most popular songwriter of the era was Stephen Foster. His music was played and sung throughout the war.
Foster wrote for the Christie Minstrels, and they were the most popular traveling entertainers of the area before the war and spawned many imitators. His music was popular through the country and was picked up in many different ways. One example of his work is the classic tune Angeline the Baker, which is still played at many old-time and bluegrass jams anywhere you go.
and the Southern slaves, like Angela. His sheet music sold over 1 million copies. He was the first American songwriter to accomplish that feat. The Confederate soldiers loved Foster for the way he portrayed the South, and many wrote home asking their loved ones for his latest Foster compositions. Foster only made one trip below the Mason-Dixon line in his life.
You would think Foster would have been a wealthy and prosperous man, but during those days, songwriters were paid pennies for their work, and the publishers made the money. Foster died in New York City during the winter of 1864. During his last year, he would go into taverns and sing this song for drinks. His close friend, George Birdseye, wrote, "On more than one occasion in a grocery bar room, I have heard Stephen Foster sing that good old song of his with a pathos that a state of semi-inebriation often lends to the voice." Well, I'm not semi-inebriated yet, but I'll do my best.
Well, maybe later.
Let us pause in life's pleasures, count as many tears, while we all sup sorrow with the poor. There's a song that will linger forever in our ears. Oh, hard times come again no more. 'Tis the song, the sigh of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you've lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. Well, the soldiers had other ideas about that song. And they made up a few verses. So we'll give you some of that. Let us close our game of poker, take tin cups in our hand, while we gather around the cook tent door, where dry mummies of hard crackers are given to each man. Oh, hard crackers, come again no more. 'Tis the song, the sigh of the hungry. Hard crackers, come again no more. Many days you have lingered upon our stomachs sore. Oh, hard crackers, come again no more. Thank you. Well, we're getting down to the finish line here. To the song that was banned by the generals in the Union Army. A few weeks after the Battle of Fredericksburg, in December of 1862, about 100,000 Union soldiers and 70,000 Confederates were camped on opposite sides of the Rappahannock River in Virginia. The battle had been one of the bloodiest of the war. Many think this was the turning point for the Irish attitude too. If anyone knows the story of Mares Heights, it's where the Irish Brigade was sent in and slaughtered. General Ambrose Burnside had ordered an attack on the heights. And if you can imagine looking across the river and seeing them build these fortifications with cannons and thinking there's no way we can ever attack that. Well, Burnside sent 5 charges. Every one was a disaster. Then he called the Irish Brigade, and they stood up and they attacked Mares Heights. And it was the worst engagement of the war for the Irish Brigade. The battle was so bloody, more than 12,000 Union soldiers were killed or wounded, and the Confederate losses numbered about 5,000.
As was customary in camp, at twilight, the regimental bands on either side began their evening concerts. When they were bivouacked so close together as they were that night, the opposing bands would sometimes play at the same time, trying to drown each other out. On other occasions, they took turns. So often the bands waged a musical contest, each playing their own patriotic tunes with as much panache and enthusiasm as they could muster, making many twilight concerts virtually a battle of the bands.
But toward the end of the evening, the battle would die down and the music would become more poignant and tender. On this particular night, a federal band was especially melodic in its rendition of the soldiers' favorite tune in the Civil War, Soldiers on Both Sides. The slow notes floated like feathers through the air, gently resting in homesick hearts. Night was the time when the soldiers usually wrote home to their mothers, girlfriends, or they reflected and held silent communion on their own.
Almost as soon as the Union Band began playing Home Sweet Home, Confederate bands also took up the strain. So one after another, every regimental band in both armies joined in. Everyone ceased what they were doing. Pens were put down, books were closed, games of tag stopped, and cards drifted to the ground. There wasn't a sound except for that music.
Then, in the words of Frank Mixon, who was a private in the 1st South Carolina Volunteers, everyone went crazy. Both sides began cheering, jumping up and down, and throwing their hats in the air. Had there not been a river between us, reflected Mixon, he thought the two armies would have put down their guns, met face to face, shaken hands, and ended the war on the spot. Union Army officers forbade their bands to play this tune for fear the men would desert. But the song really had the opposite effect on the men. It reinforced on a personal level what they were fighting for, their own homes and their own families. The song was written by a New Yorker, John Howard Payne, who was a Union College grad. And when our own 97th Oneida came home, Eugene Skinner, the chaplain, wrote, "The approach of the train bearing the regiment was announced by salutes from the old Corps gun and music by the Utica City Band, who never played Home Sweet Home better, nor under circumstances more calculated to touch tender chords and swell the hearts of the spectators." Well, we could do that again. Let's try the other one.
Try it one more time. And human.
That's it. got one more for you, but first I think there's a raffle going on, and I just want to thank Mike and Chris and all the volunteers
Yes, thank you
here
so
at the
much.
Irish Center for having us. You guys for coming out. A quick commercial, we have several shows. This is our northern show. We also have a show we've done where we do the songs of the Southern Soldiers, which is a lot different, but same format. We also are in the process of finalizing our show on the Irish, which is an amazing treasure trove of songs, stories, crack, you name it, and that should be ready in the spring. And we also have a show where we just do our favorite Civil War tunes and tell you about the songs. So hope you can come out and see us again. Mike, Chris, what? Your raffle?
Okay. Now we can lead you out in song after the round.
I think we've got a 50-50 and a door prize.
Does everybody get a white coupon for a door prize? Saw a few people come in later. Want to make sure. Did everybody get a door prize ticket? Yeah? Yeah? You guys got it? Okay. I'd like to get door prizes.
It's a ticket to your dad's next show.
Okay. Now, we'll do the door prize first, just because we will. And we'll have Amanda pick it. Okay, pick your own, that's okay too.
Really?
Pick me.
All right, who wants to be picked? All right, it is 840-5699. Yes! Congratulations!
You got a gift certificate for the 5 Point Club that was there?
Oh, there you go.
And now the
The
50-50.
50-50, okay.
Somebody's getting $25.
$25 goes to blue ticket 584-665. 584-665. There it is.
Congratulations!
All right.
There you go, $25. Pays you to come here. Thank you all for supporting our raffles.
Want the garbage?
Yeah, sure, I'll take the garbage.
Thank you. So again, a reminder in all the events, without question, you're going to want to go to that Christmas concert. You aren't going to get the tickets any cheaper than you can get them right here, right now, before you leave.
Right here, right now.
Right here, right now. And don't forget our Irish session here, the first Wednesday of the month, and I'm sure many more activities as we head into the new year. Again, thanks for supporting the Irish Center. We're going to go out with one that the soldiers made up. The Union cause is going ahead. The rebel cause will soon be dead. Their game is up, their hope is fled. We'll make them pay for the blood they shed. We'll all drink stone blood. Johnny, fill up the bowl.
In 1861, hurrah, boys, hurrah. In 1861, hurrah, says I. In 1861, this cruel war's just begun, and
We'll all drink stone blood. Johnny, fill up the bowl. In 1862, hurrah, boys, hurrah. In 1862, hurrah, says I. In 1862, we'll whip that whole damn rebel crew. We'll all drink stone blood. Johnny, fill up the bowl.
In 1863, hurrah, boys, hurrah. In 1863, hurrah, says I. In 1863, Lincoln declared the slaves are free, and
We'll all drink stone blood. Johnny, fill up the bowl. In 1864, hurrah, boys, hurrah. 1864, hurrah, says I. In 1864, we'll elect old Abe for 4 years more.
We'll all drink stone blind, Johnny, fill up the bowl. In 1865, hurrah, boys, hurrah. In 1865, hurrah, says I. In 1865, we'll have Jeff Davis dead or alive, and we'll all drink stone blind, Johnny, fill up the bowl.
On fiddle and vocals, Amanda Straney. I'm Bill Fahy. Thank you all for coming out.